The night smelled of rain and gunpowder. Sergeant Daniel Rourke knelt in the mud, his arms wrapped tight around the neck of his canine, a German shepherd named Brutus. The animal trembled, not from fear but from the restless energy of battle, muscles quivering like coiled steel. Daniel pressed his forehead against the dog's fur, whispering a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. Beyond the ridgeline, gunfire rattled like chains on a coffin lid, drawing closer. This might be their last moment together. But what Brutus did when Daniel let go, nobody in the unit would ever forget. The valley was dark, the kind of darkness that pressed against the skin, smothering. Low clouds strangled the moon, leaving only brief silver pulses through the mist whenever the wind tore a hole open. Rain had been steady for 2 days, and the battlefield had turned into a swamp where every step threatened to pull a boot clean off. Sergeant Daniel Rourke adjusted the strap of his rifle and glanced at the squad moving along the ditch behind him. 7 men, faces painted in mud, their eyes hollow with exhaustion. And then there was Brutus. 35 kilos of silent muscle, his dark coat streaked with mud, ears twitching at every unseen ripple in the night. "Clear left," muttered Corporal Vance, the youngest of the group. His voice was little more than breath. Daniel nodded, raising 2 fingers, a silent signal to hold. His gaze swept the ridge. Too quiet, the type of quiet that screamed ambush. He crouched, brushing a hand down Brutus's flank. The dog stiffened, nose lifted, nostrils flaring. His growl was low, deep, vibrating through Daniel's glove. "They're out there," Daniel whispered, mostly to himself. Lieutenant Mason eased up beside him, tall, broad-shouldered, carrying the heavy air of a man who thought orders were worth more than lives. "Rourke, keep that man under control. Last thing we need is him giving us away." Daniel's jaw flexed. He kept his voice steady. "He smells something. Better trust him." Mason's eyes narrowed, but he didn't argue. He gave the hand signal to continue forward. They pressed on, following the thin trench that wound like a scar across the valley floor. Rain ticked against helmets, dripped down necks, filled the silence with its cold persistence. Then Brutus froze. His body went rigid, tail stiff. A quiet bark, almost choked back, slipped out. Daniel's stomach sank. He pulled the leash tight. Down. Brutus crouched instantly, muscles quivering. And then it happened. Light flared ahead. A single red tracer streaked across the night. Gunfire erupted. The ridge came alive. Muzzles flashed in the dark, shredding silence with staccato thunder. Dirt kicked up in sprays. One of the squad screamed, cut off mid-shout. "Contact front." Mason roared, firing blind into the ridge. Daniel threw himself into mud, dragging Brutus down with him. Bullets hissed overhead, snapping through the air like hornets. The squad scattered, some returning fire, others trying to crawl for cover. Daniel's cheek pressed against wet earth. He smelled the rot of grass and copper blood. His pulse hammered in his ears. Brutus growled, teeth bared, his gaze fixed not on the ridge but off to the left, into the dark where no one was looking. Daniel followed his stare. For a second, he saw nothing, just shadows. Then movement, a flicker, figures slipping through the rain, circling. "Flank," Daniel bellowed, but the words were drowned in gunfire. Brutus lunged before Daniel could stop him, ripping free of the leash. The shepherd charged into the black, a blur of mud and fury. His bark ripped through the storm of gunfire, drawing it toward him. Daniel's chest tightened. Brutus! The squad was in chaos. 2 men down, one screaming with a leg wound, Mason cursing as he tried to drag him back. Vance fired wild bursts, his hand shaking. Daniel's instincts tore him in two. Chase after Brutus, or protect the squad. He chose both. He rose into the storm of bullets, firing controlled bursts at the ridge, forcing the enemy to duck. "Move," he shouted. "Fall back to the trees." Mason glared at him, fury in his eyes. But orders or not, survival mattered more. The squad scrambled toward the sparse line of trees behind them. Daniel's boots pounded mud as he veered left, toward where Brutus had vanished. Gunfire stitched the ground around him. He ducked low, vaulted over a collapsed fence, and nearly slipped on a dead man sprawled face down in the muck. Not one of theirs. He followed the sound, snarling, savage, raw. Through the mist, he found them. 2 enemy soldiers on the ground. One clutching his throat as blood pumped between his fingers. The other screaming while Brutus had his arm locked in jaws that wouldn't let go. The 3rd enemy soldier raised his rifle. Daniel fired first. The man dropped. Brutus! Heel! Daniel barked, chest heaving. The dog released instantly, bounding back, blood streaking his muzzle. His eyes burned wild, but he came to Daniel's side, panting, shaking with adrenaline. Daniel gripped the collar, pulling him close. His voice broke. "Good boy, you're a damn good boy." Behind him, the gunfire slowed. The ridge fell quiet. Only rain remained, pattering steady, washing blood into the mud. He guided Brutus back toward the trees where the survivors regrouped. 3 men left standing. 2 wounded, 1 badly. Mason paced like a caged animal, face twisted with rage. "You disobeyed my order," Mason spat. "You took that dog and went off on your own." Daniel snapped. "That dog just stopped us from being flanked and slaughtered. You'd better thank it before you open your mouth again." Mason's fists clenched. For a heartbeat, Daniel thought he might swing, but instead, the lieutenant turned away, jaw grinding. Vance broke the silence. His voice was small, shaking. "What now, Sarge? We're cut off, radios fried, and we lost half our ammo." Daniel looked at the men, their pale faces, their eyes hollow with shock. He looked at Brutus, still quivering but alert, ears twitching at every distant echo. "We move," Daniel said quietly. "North through the valley. Stick to the tree line. Stay low. And if we run into another ambush?" Vance whispered. Daniel's eyes hardened. "Then we trust the only one here whose instincts haven't failed us." He laid a hand on Brutus's head. The dog leaned into it, eyes reflecting the faint silver light, breaking through clouds. The squad fell into motion, limping through mud, dragging the wounded, shoulders bowed under weight heavier than gear. Rain followed them, relentless. As they moved, Daniel couldn't shake the last moment, when Brutus had broken free and charged into the dark. The dog hadn't just attacked. He had chosen, and in that choice lay something Daniel couldn't yet name. But he knew this. The battle wasn't over, and Brutus had just changed the rules. The trees closing around them, black spines clawing at the sky. Branches clattered in the wind, dripping with rain, snapping under boots and dragging at gear. Every step seemed louder than it should have, echoing in Daniel's ears. He kept Brutus close, hand tight on the collar, though the dog moved with uncanny silence, his paws finding paths between roots without sound. The squad was reduced to 4 fighting men, 2 dragging the wounded. Their breath steamed in the night air. Somewhere beyond the ridge, distant gunfire flared and faded, but the battlefront had shifted, leaving them stranded in a pocket of hostile ground. "We're walking into a grave," Vance whispered. Daniel gave him a sharp look. "Keep your voice down." The young corporal's face was pale, barely visible in the half-light. He was maybe 20, freckles still visible beneath the mud. A boy wearing the weight of war like it didn't fit. "They're hunting us. You know it. They'll close the net." "They already tried," Daniel replied, voice low. Brutus stopped them. Mason cut in from behind, venom in his tone. "Don't go making a hero out of that animal. He's just a tool, and tools break." Daniel turned his head, eyes cold. "Watch your mouth." For a moment, Mason's gaze held his defiance burning. Then he looked away, muttering, "Chain of command still matters, Sergeant. Don't forget that." The wounded man groaned, breaking the tension. His name was Carver, a thick-set soldier with a bullet lodged in his thigh. Blood had soaked through the bandages twice already. He leaned heavily on Reyes, another private, who staggered under the weight but refused to complain. Daniel slowed his pace. They needed rest, but not here, not in the open. His eyes scanned the tree-line. A faint shape emerged through the fog, darker than the rest. A barn, leaning and broken, its roof caved in but still standing. He signaled. "There." The squad limped toward the barn. The door creaked as Daniel shoved it open, gun raised. The interior was shadows and the sour stink of rotting hay. Rats skittered across beams, their claws scraping wood. "Clear," Daniel said after a sweep. They dragged Carver inside, laying him down on a pile of moldy straw. His breathing came shallow, ragged. Reyes looked up, eyes wide. If we don't get him out soon, he's done for. Daniel knelt by Carver, checking the wound with practiced hands. Infection was already setting in. The blood had a dark, almost oily sheen. He swallowed hard. "We'll get him out." Mason snorted. "How?" "Radio shot. Command doesn't even know where we are." Daniel ignored him, pulling off his gloves to press fresh gauze to the wound. Carver hissed in pain, jaw tight. Brutus sat close, ears twitching at every sound outside. His gaze never left the barn door. The silence stretched, broken only by Carver's labored breathing and the drip of water through holes in the roof. Then Brutus stood, stiff. A low growl rolled from his chest. Daniel's hand froze. "What is it?" The dog's gaze locked on the barn's far wall. Vance lifted his rifle. "There's nothing." The wall groaned. Boards shifted. And then thud. Heavy footsteps outside. Everyone froze. A voice came through the boards, muffled but close. Not English. Harsh syllables cut through the night. Daniel raised his hand, signaling silence. He mouthed, "Stay down." Brutus's growl deepened, but Daniel pressed a calming hand to his flank. The door creaked, slow, then stopped. Whoever was outside was listening. Mason's grip tightened on his rifle. Sweat shone on his brow despite the cold. Another voice answered from deeper in the woods. Then the crunch of boots retreating. Silence. They waited 5 long minutes, every breath measured. Finally, Mason exhaled, whispering, "Scouts. They know we're here." Daniel nodded grimly. "We move at first light." Morning came gray and wet. Mist clung to the valley, muffling sound, swallowing distance. They set out again, Carver barely conscious, Reyes half carrying him. Hours passed. The mud seemed endless. Twice they heard gunfire in the distance, but always moving away. Then Brutus halted. His ears pricked, head cocking. He sniffed, turning sharply to the right, toward a slope overgrown with brambles. "What is it?" Vance whispered. Daniel crouched, watching. The dog's tail was low, his body tense but not hostile. Curious, alert, Brutus moved forward, pulling Daniel with him. The others followed reluctantly, weapons raised. Through the brush, they found it, a path, narrow, half-hidden, leading up the slope. Tracks marred the mud, boot prints, fresh. Mason's jaw tightened. "We follow that, we walk straight into them." Daniel studied the prints. Some small, not soldiers. Civilians. Locals, he murmured. Maybe farmers. Maybe something else. Vance's voice shook. "Or bait." Daniel looked at Brutus. The dog's nose worked furiously, tail flicking once. He whined softly, pulling harder toward the trail. Daniel's got twisted. Brutus had never led him wrong. "We follow," he decided. Mason's voice cracked with anger. "You're insane. You're letting that animal dictate strategy now. What if he's wrong?" Daniel stepped closer, his voice low and sharp. "And what if he's right?" For a heartbeat, Mason looked ready to draw his sidearm. His face was red, veins standing out in his neck. Then he stepped back, muttering curses. They followed the trail. It led them to a small hollow, where the remains of a farmhouse sagged among the weeds. The roof had collapsed, but smoke curled faintly from a chimney cobbled together with rusted tin. Someone was alive inside. Daniel raised his hand, signaling halt. He moved ahead with Brutus, keeping low, rifle ready. The door was ajar. Voices drifted out, soft, tired, not military. He pushed inside. A family, 3 of them. An old man with a bent back, a woman clutching a child to her chest. Their eyes widened in terror at the sight of him. Brutus trotted forward, sniffing, tail wagging once. The child reached out a trembling hand, touching the dog's fur. Daniel lowered his rifle. "We're not here to hurt you." The old man muttered something in his own tongue. Shaking his head, he pointed toward the north, then slashed his hand across his throat. Daniel's stomach sank. Ambush ahead. The woman spoke broken English. Soldiers wait. Road. Many guns. Daniel's blood ran cold. The valley's only exit was north. If they'd walked straight, they'd have been slaughtered. He looked at Brutus, who sat calmly now, as if satisfied his message had been delivered. For the first time since the ambush, Daniel felt the faintest flicker of hope. "All right," he murmured. "We find another way." But Mason wasn't done. His voice cut sharp. "We kill them?" Everyone froze. Daniel turned slowly. "What did you just say?" Mason's eyes were hard, unflinching. "They'll give us up the second those bastards come looking. That's what people do out here." "You know it, I know it. Better they die now than cost us our lives later." The woman clutched her child tighter, eyes wide with terror. Daniel stepped between Mason and the family. His voice was steel. "No, that's not happening." Mason sneered. "Soft-hearted as always. That's why men die under your watch, Rourke. You can't make the hard calls." Daniel's fist clenched. "And you can't see the difference between survival and murder." The silence was electric. The squad shifted uneasily, eyes darting between them. Finally, Mason spat in the dirt. "Fine, but when they sell us out, their blood's on your hands." Daniel ignored him, crouching to the woman. "Is there another way out of the valley?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Old tunnels. Under hills. Farmers used long ago. Dangerous, but safe." Daniel's pulse quickened. "A chance." He glanced at Brutus. The dog wagged his tail once, as if in agreement. For the first time, Daniel realized something unsettling. Brutus wasn't just reacting anymore. He was leading, and somehow he seemed to know more about their path than any of them. The tunnels were older than memory, carved through the hillside by hands long gone. Their walls were damp stone, dripping with mineral sweat. The air thick with mold and silence. Every footstep echoed too loud, bouncing down corridors that seemed to lead nowhere. Brutus padded ahead, nose low to the ground, ears pricked. He moved with certainty, every turn chosen with animal instinct. Daniel trusted him more than the maps Mason had sneered over before they burned with the radio. Behind them, the squad dragged on. Carver was barely conscious, mumbling in fever dreams, his blood leaving dark smears on Reyes's fatigues. Vance's nerves were fraying. Every shadow was an enemy, every sound a trap. Mason, though, was the true weight on Daniel's shoulders. He walked stiff, his eyes hard, lips pressed in. Daniel could feel the man's anger simmering with every step, waiting for a spark. "Where the hell's this dog taking us?" Mason muttered finally, his voice carrying in the cavern. Daniel kept his own low, away from the ambush, toward a chance. Mason barked a humorless laugh. "A chance? You've lost it, Rourke. We're following a mutt through rat holes. That's not survival, it's suicide." Daniel stopped, turning on him. The flashlight mounted on his rifle cast Mason's face in sharp angles, his eyes shadowed. "You got a better idea?" For a moment, neither spoke. Only the steady drip of water broke the silence. Then Mason smiled, not with humor, but with something colder. "Yeah, cut the dead weight. Leave Carver. He's slowing us down." Reyes stiffened, jaw tightening. "We're not leaving him." "Shut your mouth, Private." Mason's gaze didn't leave Daniel's. "You know I'm right. He's a corpse walking, and he'll drag us all with him." Daniel stepped closer. "Say that again, and I'll put you down myself." The standoff stretched. Brutus growled low, the sound rolling to the tunnel like distant thunder. Finally, Mason raised his hands, mock surrender. "Fine, have it your way. But when we're all dead, remember we refuse to make the hard call." They moved on, the air growing colder, thicker. The tunnel sloped downward, deeper into the earth. The light of the entrance was long gone. Only the thin glow of their flashlights cut the dark. Brutus stopped suddenly. His ears pricked. A soft whine slipped from his throat. "What now?" Vance whispered, voice trembling. Daniel crouched beside the dog. Brutus stared down a side passage, nostrils flaring. A sound reached them. Faint, metallic, like boots on stone. Daniel's stomach turned. They weren't alone. "Lights out," he ordered. Darkness swallowed them. Only the sound of rainwater dripping remained. Then voices. Foreign, growing closer. They were being hunted. Daniel's mind raced. The tunnel forked ahead, left or right. Brutus tugged toward the right, muscles taut. Daniel trusted him, signaling the squad silently. They slipped down the passage, feet as light as possible, breaths held. The voices drew nearer, echoing. Flashlights flared briefly behind them, sweeping the stone walls. Mason hissed under his breath. "We can't outrun them. We'll be trapped." Daniel ignored him, eyes fixed on Brutus. The dog moved faster now, pulling with urgency. The tunnel widened suddenly into a cavern. Stalactites dripped from the ceiling, the floor uneven with stone and pools of dark water. And at the far end, light, faint, natural. An exit. Relief surged through Daniel's chest. There. The gunshot cut him off. It echoed like thunder, deafening in the cavern. Reyes staggered, a red bloom spreading across his chest. He fell without a sound. Daniel spun, heart hammering. Mason stood there, pistol in hand, smoke curling from a barrel. For a moment, no one moved. "What the hell have you done?" Daniel roared. Mason's face was calm, almost serene. "Saved us. Less weight. More chance to move fast." Vance stared, horrified. You shot one of our own." Mason's gaze flicked to him, cold and unblinking. He was a liability, same as Carver. And if you speak another word, you're next. The cavern seemed to tilt, reality sliding. Daniel's hand shook on his rifle, tore between rage and disbelief. "You betrayed us," Daniel whispered. Mason's smile was thin. "No, I did what you couldn't. And when command asks what happened out here, they'll believe me. They'll say Rourke lost control, followed his dog into a hole, and got men killed." Brutus growled, teeth bared, body coiled like a spring. Mason raised his pistol toward Daniel. "And now we finish this." The world slowed. The air thickened. Daniel saw the squeeze of Mason's finger on the trigger. And Brutus moved. He launched with a snarl that split the air, slamming into Mason with the force of battering ram. The gun fired wild, the bullet sparking against stone. Mason went down hard. Brutus's jaws clamped around his arm, tearing flesh and bone. Mason screamed, thrashing, the sound raw and animal. His pistol clattered away into the dark. "Brutus!" Daniel shouted. "Down!" The dog hesitated, then released, stepping back, chest heaving, eyes blazing. Mason lay bleeding, clutching the shredded ruin of his arm. Daniel stood over him, rifle aimed. His breath came ragged, every muscle taut. Mason looked up, face twisted with hatred and pain. "Do it," he spat. "Pull the trigger. Be the hero." Daniel's finger hovered on the trigger. His heart pounded. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. But he lowered the rifle. "No," he said quietly. "You'll live with this." Mason's laugh was broken, bitter. "Then you're fool." Daniel turned away. Vance stood frozen, pale and shaking. Carver moaned faintly, still alive, barely. "Help me," Daniel ordered. Together they dragged Carver toward the light. Behind them, Mason's laughter echoed in the cavern, bitter and hollow. The exit spilled them into the open air. The valley stretched below, green and wet under a washed-out sky. Rain had stopped. Birds called faintly in the distance. They stumbled down the hillside, exhausted. Every step felt heavier. Brutus stayed close, head high, ears alert. His fur was matted with blood, some his, some not. At the tree line, Daniel stopped. He dropped to his knees, pulling Brutus close, wrapping arms around him. The dog pressed against him, warm, alive, steady. Daniel's voice broke. "You saved me. Saved all of us." Brutus licked the mud and blood from his cheek, tail thumping once. Vance stood behind them, silent. He looked at Daniel, then at Brutus, eyes wet. "If we make it out, they'll never believe it. They'll never understand what that dog did. Daniel held Brutus tighter, staring at the valley stretching into endless distance. We'll know. That's enough. He didn't say the rest. That war would forget them. That Mason's lies might outlive the truth. But in that quiet, with the weight of Brutus's body against his, Daniel felt something he hadn't in months. Hope. Epilogue. 2 weeks later, reports would filter back. A squad lost in the valley. Survivors rescued near the northern river. Mason among them, one arm gone, his story slicked with half-truths. But Daniel didn't care. He remembered the mud, the gunfire, the betrayal. He remembered Reyes's last breath, Carver's pain. And most of all, he remembered the moment Brutus leapt, choosing instinct, loyalty, love over fear. When the war ended, Daniel left it all behind. Small town, quiet farm, open fields. Just him and Brutus, older, slower, but alive. Every dawn, as the sun rose over wet grass, Daniel would kneel, press his forehead to Brutus's fur, and whisper, "One more day, boy, just one more." And Brutus, faithful as ever, would wag his tail, ready for whatever came. Backhand index pointing right subtle call. If the story sat with you, if it left a weight in your chest, share it quietly. Stories live longer when they're carried forward.